was going to pop on today because I want to share you some ways that you can make art with super simple and easy things that you might have at home. So today I'm going to show you how you can create your very own weaving with some things that you might have around the house, like cardboard. So just some cardboard from a box that we got mailed to us. This is just a container from the recycling bin and some yarn today. So these are the things that we're going to be using. And what I did was and Oliver made this one. He weaved a little blanket for Tootsie, the classroom guinea pig, and I weaved a little bookmark. So I'm going to show you how you can do that with these simple things at home. I hope you guys are doing well. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of cardboard here and I'm going to create my loom. The loom is what we actually weave on. So I want my loom to be 3 by 6 inches. That's what I use to create this size. If you want yours to be smaller, Oliver did a 3 by 4 and that's what created this size. So depending on what size weaving you want, you're going to create a loom out of your cardboard. So I'm just measuring, this is exactly 3 inches. And it's going to go up to 6 inches. And I'm just going to mark where I'm going to cut it, and then I will cut it out. So I'm just cutting out a 3 by 6 inch piece of cardboard for my weaving loom. Alright, so now that I have my loom cut out, I'm going to create some marks on it to cut notches into it where we will be putting our warp string. Our warp string is what we weave into. So I'm going to create 1/2 inch notches. So I'm using a ruler again, and I'm going to use, let's see if I have a nice, let's see if this will show up, colored pencil here to make my notches. So every 1/2 inch, you could even do 1/4 inch if you want. For this weaving, I did a 1/4 inch. So depending on how intense you want it, you could do 1/4 to 1/2. So I'll do both so you can kind of see what it looks like. So I'm doing it along the bottom edge of my loom here, and then I'm also going to do it along the top edge. So every 1/4. And once you have all of your notches, you're going to take a scissors and just cut a little bit into where those notches are. I'm going to go ahead and cut the top and the bottom. I'm cutting about 1/2 inch to a quarter of an inch into create those notches. Alright, now that I have those notches cut into my loom, I am going to get my warp string onto my loom. So I'm using, this is a type of string that's specifically for weaving, but if you don't have any thinner string, you can just simply use yarn. And I'm going to take the end of my string, put it through that top left notch, pull it a little bit, and I'm just going to tape it right here with a piece of tape. So you can use masking tape or any type of tape that you might have at home. And then from here I'm going to go down, in, over, up. So what I'm doing is I'm not going across the back at all, I'm just staying on the front. So in, over, down, in, over, up. And I'm going to do this all the way across my loom. And again, I can make sure I'm doing it right if I don't have any of the strings showing up on the back side. So I'm going to continue in, over, up, in, over, down, making sure I don't skip a spot, because that can be very sad to have to start over creating your warp string. Once you have your warp done, and I've gone all the way across, I'm just going to cut this part off and tape it onto the back. So this will be a lot easier for me to take off. I'll just only have to tie 2 knots, which is pretty exciting. If I did it where I went around and around both sides, you'd have to end up tying lots and lots and knots, which isn't as fun. Alright, so now that I have my loom ready and my warp strings ready, if you are a beginner weaver, this might be a nice little tip for you. So you might want to go ahead and color every other string with a marker. This way it'll be easier for you to see which strings you need to go over and which strings you need to go under. So I'm just taking a Sharpie and coloring every other string. And once I've done that, we're gonna make a needle for our weaving then. All right, that's all done. So now we're gonna go ahead and make our needle. So traditionally weaving, a lot of times you'll see weavers using plastic needles like this. If you have like an embroidery or a tapestry needle, those usually work really well too because they have a nice big eye that you can get the yarn in. But if you don't have any of those at home, here's a quick, easy way to make your very own. You can just take, this is just a container lid. I'm just gonna cut it in half. And then I'm going to cut into it like this and create a little triangle. And then I'm going to take one side, this side here, I'm going to use this little hole puncher here, and I'm going to punch a hole into it. And that's where I'm going to thread my needle, okay? I'm sorry, thread the yarn through. So once I'm ready for that, I'm going to go ahead and take some yarn, whatever color you want to start with. So I think I'm going to start with some pink. There's some pink yarn. And I'm going to get about an arm's length of pink yarn and cut that off. Then I'm going to take one side, and you might have a parent or an adult help you with this part, and I'm going to tie it on the top left warp string. So the warp string is the string that's going vertically that we're going to weave into, and we're going to weave into it with our weft string. So warp in the weft. I'm going to just cut off the extra here. I'm going to find the other end of my string. There it is. And I'm going to tie this to my handmade needle here. And I like to double knot that. Alright, so I'm going to start by going, and if this is a little too flimsy, you can always cut it down, going underneath the black warp string. So I'm going to go under. Notice when I'm doing this, I'm actually really far down into the middle of my loom as I do this. I get all the way across. I'm going to pull it all the way across. Voila. Notice I don't want to pull because I don't want this to be pulled tight. You don't want it to turn into like an hourglass because that means we're weaving too tight. We want it to be fairly just nice, gently loose. So now I went under the black over the white. Now I'm going to go under the white over the black. So I'm going to go ahead, go back this way, and if you don't have any containers at home or needles at home, again, you can just simply do this with your fingers too, if that's simpler for you. It's really whatever works best for you. So these are just a couple strategies that might help you along the way. Alright, so I got all the way to the other side. I'm going to pull until it's nice. There's no extra string, and then I'm just going to push it up. Alright, and then I'm going to continue back this way. So I'm going to continue weaving all the way down until I no longer have any string, alright? Done with my first color here, so I'm gonna go ahead, cut that off. I kind of cut it so I cut into the knot so that I can just take that off. And then there's a couple ways you can tie this off. The first way is, if you want, you can just tie it around this warp string, or you can tie it onto the string that you're going to be doing next. So I want to do orange next, and so I'm going to take about an arm's length of orange string. and then I'm gonna tie those two together. So I'm gonna go across, around, loop, and make them into a knot. I like this a little bit more because I feel like it hides the knot a little bit better. If you want to get really fancy and you do have a nice plastic needle at home, you can leave that string and then take your needle. Oh, look at that, it came undone. Take your needle and actually take that extra string and weave it in when you're all done. So let me try double knotting that at this time and see if that does the trick. Alright, so this time I'm going to show you, because I had a couple people that were interested in how to do this kind of fancier weaving where I have this triangular shape here. So I'm just going to quickly show you what that looks like. If you are going to try something a little bit fancier, I would highly recommend getting a plastic needle that are just a little bit easier to get into some of the edges that way, okay? So again, this is, if you're doing it this way, I would just recommend going straight across like that, and then taking either a comb or a fork, and you can just push your weaving up like so to make room for those new colors and to make sure it's nice and tight. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and tie this on to my orange string, and I'm going to show you how to create those diagonal looks as well. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start creating a diagonal weaving. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go across this way to make kind of a diagonal this way, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, I've noticed I went over this last warp string, I'm going to go under, over, all the way across. So this first time, I'm going to go all the way across, okay? Get all the way to the end, pull it through. Now this time when I go back to this side, I'm actually, I gotta get that knot through there, going to skip the very last warp string. Alright, so I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna ignore that last warp string like it's not even there. And I'm going to pull it through, push it up, and then I'm gonna start going back this way. So I've just completely ignored that last warp string on the left there. And I'm gonna continue that as I continue to go down. I'm going to keep ignoring the very last warp string. So I'm going to go ahead and go back this time. And when I'm doing this too, I kind of want to keep it a little bit looser because I'm going to be weaving in between those layers. So I'm going to go under this one, and I'm ignoring that second one there, okay? So I'm ignoring this one, going under this one, and going back across. Alright, so I'm going to continue that all the way down until I am onto the last string. Alright, so I've weaved all the way down where I've only gotten to the very last one. I'm going to go ahead, cut this off, and just leave that hanging there. And then I'm going to choose the next color that I want. I think the next color I'm going to do is yellow. So we're going to take about an arm's length of yellow, and we're going to weave that into the other side here. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this on. Double knot it. And then tie the end on to this last warp string. Now again, you can just leave it hanging if you want, and then weave it in later. That's your choice. I just like to go through and cut all the extra string, but I know it's already tied off. I'm going to push that up. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start weaving in between these layers. So if I kind of pull this down, you can kind of see into here. So on the first one, I'm going to go right into here, pull, 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 and weave back. And then now I'm gonna get really going here, and I go over, under, over, and I'm gonna go in between those two, over, under there, and weave back. Alright, and now I'm gonna go ahead, pull that next side, push this closed and go into that one. So I'm gonna go over, under, into here, pull it through, and go back. I'm gonna continue to do this all the way down till I meet up with my orange string down here, and if I wanted to I could even tie those together. But each time I'm just gonna go in between these layers going into that next section, okay? All right, so here we go. All right, so I weaved the yellow in to the orange there, so I'm gonna go ahead, cut off my needle, and tie those two together. And once I do that, I'm gonna cut off that extra. Cut here. Take my fork, or if you prefer comb, also does the same trick. And I'm just gonna push up my weaving. You can see that nice triangle it created. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue weaving all the way down my loom. This weaving, so I'm going to take it off of its loom, and then if you want I can show you quickly how to add the little fringes on the top for your bookmark. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the tape on one side of the loom and then pull this off, and then I'm just going to slowly start to bend down the loom and then just carefully pull off those warp strings. Before I let it get too loosened up, I'm going to tie off the last string right here. I just looped it into that other warp string. I'm going to tie it off real quick and then cut off that extra. There's that, and I'll just cut that extra part off. On the other side, so I'm going to take off that piece, bend these down, and pull those warp strings off. So then if you want to add some fringe, you can choose whatever color you want, and I usually cut it into about 2.5 to 3 inch strips of yarn for the little fringe on the end. So you can see some of the warp strings kind of sticking out still, so you can kind of pull and spread it out so it's not all loose there. Cut off this extra one here. Alright, so I'm going to go to this side because I want my fringe, I think I want it to be on this side. I'm going to cut some white pieces off for some fringe. So I have some white yarn here, and I'm going to just cut a bunch of pieces about the same length. So let's see, we'll go about that long. So if I just wrap it around for my fingers, that should give me about the right length that I want. Take my scissors. Cut that off. Alright, so I'm going to start by taking 2 of these at a time, folding them in half, and you might have to take your needle and then pull up that last warp string. I'm going to take that folded edge, pull that through, find the loop with my finger, and pull the fringes through. So it looks like I lost one there, so I'll try that one again. Okay, fold them in half, put them through the loop. This time make sure I get all 4 ends through. There we go. And pull it nice and tight. So I'm going to do that to all the ends of the warp string to create a nice fringe for my bookmark. Fringe. Now I'm just going to go ahead and trim it so it's all the same length. Double check to make sure they're all nice and even. And there's your very own woven bookmark. So if you enjoyed this process, I will put this video on my Flex Learning site as well as YouTube. And if you wanted to learn some different techniques with weaving, feel free to check out YouTube because they have tons of different cool techniques that you could try as well. Can't wait to see what you guys do.